Hello everyone, welcome back to another episode of the United States Air Force where I will be talking about the F-35 Lightning II or the F-35 Joint Strike Fighter. The F-35 is a all-weather, single-seat and engine, multi-role stealth fighter. It has an internal weapon bay that helps reduce its RCS or radar cross-section. As a multi-role fighter, it allows this plane to carry out a variety of different munitions for both air-to-air and air-to-ground, making it very versatile to handle different situations depending on its mission. Development of the F-35. In 1991, the Soviet Union collapsed. The Department of Defense was decreasing the funding for all branches of the United States military and was trying to figure out how to replace the aging planes and the ever massive increased advancement of technology, like the Harriers, the F-14s, the F-15s, the F-16s, so on and so on. And they also even wanted to replace the F-22 that had stopped production back in 2011 due to the large increase of cost per plane. And in 1991 and 2021 was the development phase of the F-35, and the JSF Joint Strike Fighter program was assigned to the task of creating a brand new 5th-gen stealth plane. During 1997, two companies were chosen to build this plane, Lockheed and Boeing. Boeing made the X-32 and Lockheed made the X-35. On October 26, 2001, Lockheed's X-35 won the competition. During the development, the JSF also needed Lockheed to build a total of 4 variants. An F-35 Alpha, which is a CTOL or CTOL, a conventional takeoff and landing for the United States Air Force, which is a standard landing and takeoff of all planes. The second variant is the F-35 Bravo, which is the only variant that is equipped with a thrust vectoring engine in order to do a STOVL, or STOVL, a short takeoff and vertical landing for the United States Marines, which allows the plane to lift off and land vertically like the Harrier does, and it can do it anywhere, as long as it has the ability to do it. The main reason the Marines needed a new plane is not to only replace the Harrier, but also to not destroy the concrete from both the runways and carriers like the Harrier had a tendency to do, and also be able to carry a larger load than a carrier had to carry when it's trying to do a STOVL. And then the F-35 Charlie, which is a carrier-based plane for the United States Navy that has a foldable wings that helps with storage on carriers. And the last variant is the F-35I, called IDEA, for the Israeli Air Force. Production of the F-35. On February 19, 2006, the first F-35 was built in Fort Worth, Texas, United States. Sadly, it didn't really say what the variant is other than it was called the AF-1. So here you just are going to assume that it was F-35 Alpha, because it couldn't be the Bravo because it was still having troubles and it was still technically more of a blueprint than a Alpha compared a prototype compared to the F-35 Alpha, which is a completed prototype. And it's usually just something that can do a conventional takeoff and landing, just to make sure nothing is wrong with it. And it took its first flight on December 15th, 2006. Right now, there are 2,456 planes that are planned to be built, but I don't know exactly how many. Some sources are just not entirely together on this on the net. And they show different numbers. So I'm guessing 246 is around-ish there, because we already have a lot, as I'm going to say right here soon. But so far, the United States Air Force has a total of 450 F-35 Alphas. The Marines has a total of 420, which is 2 of the variants, which is around 353 Bravos and 67 Charlie variants. The United States Navy has a total of 450, and apparently they have 3 variants from what I've seen, but sadly I wasn't able to find the exact numbers of the variants for them. So sorry, I will update this video if I find and probably some more information on F-35 once it gets a little bit older. Um, the F-35 is being built at a total of 156 planes a year, which is a total of 13 planes per month. Now, this plane is being exported unlike the F-22, which isn't. Even though the F-35 technically has way more tech on it than the F-22, and the U.S. government refuses to export the F-22 because they say they can't export it to other countries because of the fear that the tech will be stolen. Which is funny because now they're contradicting themselves with this plane because we're selling it to other NATO nations. Um, but I primarily believe the reason why we're doing it is to help have them help pretty much cover some of the cost of building and developing this plane. Otherwise, we will not be able to build that many planes already without destroying our own economy because this plane is very expensive to develop and it's expensive to build. Um, right now, there are a lot of countries out there, NATO nations mainly, that have the F-35. From what I've seen, around 10 that currently has them. And you will have more that are currently waiting for them, just waiting to get off the production line, and some of them are just waiting because of they're still in talks and talking about buying them. And these nations that currently have them are the UK, Italy, Netherlands, Australia, Canada, Denmark, Norway, Israel, Japan, and South Korea. So, like I said before, some of these nations are still actually waiting on them, and the ones that don't have them are still somewhat in the talks of buying them. Cost of the F-35. The F-35 Alpha costs 82.5 million USDs. The F-35 Bravo costs 109 million USDs. The F-35 Charlie costs 102.1 million USDs. And the exports like the F-35I Idea costs around 113 to 130 million dollars. Now, compared to the F-16 export, which only cost 50 million USDs. So, sorry for the citizens of Israel, you have to pay more than twice the price for this plane, mainly because it's an export. Now, why does the Bravo and Charlie variant cost so much than the Alpha? You might be asking if you don't really know much about this type of stuff. The main reason is because they require pretty much more programming and materials and equipment than the Alpha does. For instance, the Charlie plane. Let's go over that real quick. The plane brains needs to be folded in order to fit them in storage because the carriers has to fit at least 64 to 130 aircrafts. This is both the planes, helicopters, the AWACS, and such. And they also need to have a special hook on the gears for landing on the carriers because there is not enough room for both landing and taking off. So they have to reinforce the gears and rings for the variants. Now, as you'll be seeing in this video, for taking off, you have a little, the gear sits in a little, I forget what it's called now. I can't say it. Some kind of mechanism, and it forces it to take off to help with the speed when it's punching afterburners. If it's not properly reinforced, that gear will fly off, and that plane will be sitting on that one way. Then you have the gears that has multiple cables on the aircraft carrier that will catch the hook in order to stop the plane super fast. So they have to be enforced heavily in order for the plane not to break. And for the Marines, the Bravo variant has to lift off vertically. So the engine thrusters has to be pointing downwards without the thrusters ripping off. So the hydraulics and the gears and everything has to be really strong. And it has, as you already saw, there's a big lift fan that sits right behind the cockpit. That helps with the lift for the front of the plane. So both the variable thruster and the fan needs to be very powerful. And because of that, it costs a lot of money. And like I said before, These gears and hydraulics and materials, they are not cheap at all. Now, if the military makes 156 planes a year, the total cost for the Alpha will be around $1.3 billion just to build. The Bravo will be around $17 billion to build, and the Charlie variants will be cost around $15.93 billion a year. And this, like I'm saying years here now, and this is just being spent on building them all, and that's everything together. All right. Once you put like these are just strictly by themselves, and imagine what would happen if we build a lot of these planes together over the cost of it. Um, Now, the cost of flying the F-35 is around $41,986 per sortie, and the pay of the F-35 pilots is 700. Sorry about that. 75,000 to $123,000 a year. The development of F-35 right now is over 1.7 trillion dollars, and it will eventually rise above $2 trillion dollars, and right now is the most expensive military plane in the world to be developed and maintained. No other plane that I can try to find and know of is even close to how much this plane costs on development. Now I'm into the B-2 Spirit Bomber, which is the most expensive military plane to be built. And that's is sitting at a cost of $2 billion. That's, like I said before, that's development and build for the B-2. Now, there are other nations, mainly only NATO nations, some of them, like 10 or something like that. I forget what I said earlier. That help pay for the development of this plane. But still, extremely expensive. Just to develop and trying to fix all the problems. And this is not just straight out the bat of the drawing board with the blueprints or anything. This is over time of the $1.7 trillion of trying to fix all the problems it has, and it still has. And it will rise above $2 trillion because it's still having all these problems. So, and not only that, even if we have 10 NATO nations that's helping, just like everything else, the United States is still paying for the majority of it. In order to become the F-35 pilot, it is pretty much the same as the F-22. If you did not watch my F-22 video and you don't know what it takes a long time, a lot of years you have to invest to become a pilot. Because you have to get a college diploma, that is mandatory, so it takes 1 to 3 years. Or more, depending on what kind of degree you're going for. You know, like if you're going for a doctorate, that's going to take a lot longer. Then you have to go to basic, which is 7.5 weeks long. Then the AIT, which is training for your actual job in the military. It takes 2.5 to 3.5 years of pilot training. Then you have, after that, if you're able to get the go to these programs, you have to go for another training for 9 months just to become an F-35 pilot. And this is held at Luke Air Force Base, Arizona, and is also held at England Air Force Base near Valparaiso, Florida. As of May 9th, 2024, the plane reached its milestone of its 100,000th sortie, and the United States Air Force wants to train over 400 pilots annually. And the plane has to do a full maintenance check every 400 to 600 flight hours. And it takes roughly 10 hours to do a maintenance on it. And that's if the crew has the parts and tools to do the maintenance on it, because we're severely hurting on it. Now, they say early on the plane was having a critical error at every 11 flight hours, which was rendering at least 48% of the planes to be grounded for repairs. And in order to fight this growing problem and the cost of it, which was massively increasing, and it is already expensive just to build and maintain these planes, in in order to combat it, and they have to reduce the flight time, training, and maintenance it takes just to make it a little cheaper, which is not great because if you reduce the flight time, the pilots don't get the training that they really need. And maintenance won't be able to properly maintain the plane. So the plane's combat readiness from the internet, from what I've seen, said 48%. In DoD, it said that they operate and sustain at least 630. So when you do the numbers, it's 48%. But if that's true, because in early May or April, I don't remember which, of 2024, I remember seeing a government official talk to one of the Air Force commanders and stated that through his research and checking documents, that only 29% of the F-35s are actual combat ready. Now, to me, that makes much more sense from what I have seen of how much problems this plane has. We are losing these planes just through accidents more than than even combat, so it's kind of ridiculous. The combat record. Now, since this plane is really brand new, as you've seen, it's not that old. The F-35 has seen very little combat. It has seen combat operations mainly in Israel, Iraq, Syria, and Afghanistan, doing nothing but air-to-ground missions. So it has 0 air-to-air kills. Now, it's mainly Israel that's doing this, no other country. Israel is pretty much illegally bombing Iraq and Syria and Afghanistan. So, now, like the F-22, the government likes to boast that it has an excellent kill ratio, and it had a 21-to-1 kill ratio during the Red Flag area war game. And now the reason why I'm not a big fan of it, not just saying I like to boast, because we really do like to boast about that stuff. Training and actual combat are two completely different scenarios that can happen. It will never be the same. Like I said before, since this plane's new and no new wars that we have taken officially participated in the United States. So only time will tell if this plane will actually even get combat at all. And if it does, it will tell what the actual capabilities of this plane, whether it's going to be very good or not. So until it has that actual combat experience against pretty much a near competitor or an equal competitor, this plane's going to be dominant in places like Iraq and Syria and Afghanistan that don't really have the training and tools that can properly take out this plane compared to what Russia and China can. So we have to wait and see. Specifications. The F-35 has one crew. The length is 51 feet 4 inches. Wingspan is 35 feet. The height is 14 feet 4 inches. It has an empty weight of 3,000 pounds or 13,290 kilograms. The gross weight is 49,540 pounds or 22,471 kilograms. Max weight is 65,918 pounds or 29,900 kilograms. This plane can carry 2 external 600-gallon or 2,271 fuel tanks. That is external. The engine has one Pratt & Whitney with the 2 variants. That is the Alpha and Charlie, which is the F135 PW100 with a 28,000 pounds per force, with 125 kilonewtons of dry thrust, and with the afterburners it is 43,000 pounds of force with 191 kilonewtons. The F-35B is equipped with the F-135 PW600 variant with a total of 27,000 pounds of force with 120 kilonewtons dry thrust. And with the afterburners, it is 41,000 pounds of force with 182 kilonewtons. And when it is using its STOVL, the STOVL, it produces 900 to 3,000 pounds of force. The speed at sea level is Mach 1.06, which is a 806 miles per hour, or 1,296 kilometers per hour. The max speed is Mach 1.6 at 1,200 miles per hour, or 1,931 kilometers per hour. At high altitude, the super cruise is 1.2, which is 920 miles per hour, or 1,480 kilometers. The range is 1,700 miles, or 2,800 kilometers. The combat range is 770 miles, or 1,239 kilometers. In air-to-air configuration, it can travel up to a total of 870 miles, or 1,410 kilometers. The ferry range, which is pretty much minimal or no loadout, pretty much its empty rate, is 1,500 miles, or 2,414 kilometers. The service ceiling is 50,000 feet, or 15,000 meters. The G limit, it's different for all three variants. The Alpha version is plus 9 Gs. The Bravo version is plus 7 Gs. The F35C is 7.5 Gs. The thrust to weight ratio is 1.07. It has, for the armaments, has one 25 millimeter GAU 22 Alpha 4-barrel rotary cannon with 180 rounds that can fire at least 3,300 rounds per minute. It has 4 internal hardpoints and 6 external hardpoints under the wing with a capacity of 5,700 pounds and 2,600 kilograms. And that's external. And then for the internal, it can carry 15,000 pounds or 6,800 kilograms of fuel. For the air-to-air missiles, it can carry a 9X AIM Sidewinder, an AIM 120 ARAMS, an AIM 132 AS RAM, and it is still in development, but it will eventually be able to carry a AIM 260 JTIM, which is expected sometime in 2024 or maybe next year. I haven't heard when it was completed yet. I have a good feeling it's going to be next year, or maybe later. Seeing how our economies work, seeing how our economy is right now and what's happening, it'll probably be next year. It's much later. And the next one that's being developed is the MBDA Meteor. For the air-to-ground missiles are the AGM-88G AARGM ER, a AGM-158 JASON, a AGM-179 JAGM, and currently developed is the Spear 3 and the CIAW, or stand-in attack weapon. For the air-to-ship missiles are the AGM-158 Charlie LRASM, and under development is the Joint Strike Missile. For the bombs it can carry are the JDAMs, Pavery, Precision Guided Glide Bomb, AGM-154 JSOW, GPU 39SDB. Alright, now I'm going to give you a overview of the F-35 by giving the pros and cons. I'm trying to do something different than most content creators out there are doing, because some give either a biased or unbiased view. The unbiased are obviously better, especially a few of them that I've seen. They do a really great job at it. But from what I have seen, they pretty much don't really go into like the pro. I haven't seen anybody go into the pros and cons of the planes and stuff like that. Why they're good and why they're not. It just, they talk about it and then they kind of go over it and stuff, kind of giving what they think. Let's say like if it's a bias, and they either boast about it to no end, or they absolutely trash talk about it. So it doesn't give you good information. So hopefully I can do a good job of giving you a pros and cons of the equipment I would be covering. So and some of them will have my thoughts too. So here will be remember, no matter how good of a plane there is or how crappy the plane, there will always be pros and cons of it. It will have something that will be good at and something that makes it trashy. It's just that's how life is, all right? I'll be going over the pros first. All right. For the pros, I will just how I'm going to do this is I'm just going to say what they are and then I'll go over into it. Stealth, multi-role plane. Bravo variant is capable of STEVO. One of the most advanced planes in the world. Cost, pilot, training, single engine, production rate. Stealth. It is made of materials, paints, that helps reduce the reflection, emissions radars, infrared visible light, pretty much like how you take pictures or how your eyes work. They work exactly just like how cameras are. So if you don't really know that, go ahead and take a look. Radio frequency and its spectrum, where it absorbs or bounces off the signal to somewhere else entirely different instead of going back to the radar that it produced it from. To penetrate air defenses and use its munitions to destroy certain targets. Multi-role fighter. It is a highly versatile plane where it is a jack of all trades and a master of none. So it can equip a good variety of both air-to-air and air-to-ground munitions depending on its missions that it's going out to, compared to any air superiority fighter or attacker that are more built for a single purpose. A single engine. It has one powerful and advanced engine which makes it better than most twin engines, given a lot of thrust. One of the variants has a STEVO that allows it to take off and land vertically anywhere without a need for a runway, and that would be the Bravo variant. Advanced tech. The F-35 is one of the most advanced planes in the world. It has more tech than even the F-22. Cost. The F-35 is the second cheapest fighter plane to be built, even with its most expensive variant out of all the stealth planes. Here's a few prices I'm going to be putting up. You will see that it is the second cheapest plane out of all the fighters. The Su-57 is between $35 to $54 million in the United States USD. The F-35 is the Alpha version is 82.5 million. The Bravo variant is 109. The C variant is 102. The export version is 113, 130 million. The Chinese J-20 is $110 million USD. The F-22 is 360 million USD. And this is, like I said before, this is fighters. I'm not going to include the bombers. That would take a little too long. And the bombers are way more expensive than these planes are. So that's your price range of the planes. I'm going to leave this up a little bit so you guys get a good look at it. Pilot training. The U.S. has one of the best training schools and programs in the world that can produce highly skilled troops for their jobs. That is without a doubt. I know because I have experienced some of them when I was in the United States Army. So we do a really good job of training people. Production rate. Right now, the F-35 has the highest production rate as a 5th gen in the world. Here are some of the production rates I'm going to put up here shortly for each aircraft. Alright, for the Su-57, I'm going to go down to the bottom. Obviously, it is in a low rate production. They have yet to actually put it in full production. I'm pretty sure they're just waiting for the new engines. Once that come out, they'll probably throw in full production. But it won't be as high as everything else. Russia has a entirely different viewpoint than every other country. The F-35 is at 156 per year. The J-20 is 100 planes per year. At its peak, the F-22 was making at 48 planes per year, and by the end, with all the reduction to cost and everything like that, it ended up being 36 planes a year. So you can see the F-35 tops everything else in production rate. Maybe China will probably produce more J-20s in the next couple of years. Who knows? I highly doubt Russia will ever get above like 50. And they never had a massive air force, and I believe they don't really care if they have a massive air force. They just want, from what I've seen, they probably just only want enough planes in the air just to help cover air defenses. That's pretty much about it. Um, Now for the cons. Now it's going to be somewhat the same because to every pro there is a con, and that's for everything. It would be just like the pros. I'll give it off the list and then explain. Stealth, multi-role, single engine. Each branch has a variant. Advanced tech, cost, maintenance, development costs, problems getting tools and parts, pilot training, having difficulties with manpower, exports. It has a smaller wingspan, a 5th gen, thrust vectoring, a weakness that all your United States military planes have, even some of the rest. I'm pretty sure all of the Western European planes too. This plane was built for profit. Alright, the cons. Stealth. No matter how small its RCS is, no matter what the stealth plane, it is still visible on radars. It's just the radars do not know exactly what it is. Primarily because all radars, everything gives off an image in some form or way. And the RCS reduces that, so it doesn't know what it is for the time being until they figure out what change its wavelength, change in its strength and stuff like that. Then they'll find it or whatever. Another problem with stealth is the limited capacity to store munitions for missions because they have to store it internally for it to keep its stealth. Now, of course, every single stealth plane has a hard point on the outside under the wings, just like every other plane in the world, military plane in the world. But if you do that, you defeat the purpose of having stealth, because bombs and missiles are not stealthy. They're not really meant to be stealthy. They're meant to be loud. Another problem with stealth is the cost of the materials, the maintenance needed for the materials, and so on. It's completely different than Gen 4. Gen 4 will probably cost tens of thousands or even more cheaper than even for maintenance and maintaining them all year round compared to a stealth plane. Multi-role fighter. Because it is a jack of all trades, it makes it a master of none. So if it goes against, like, say, air superiority fighter, like the Su-35S, the F-22, Su-57, it would be at a massive disadvantage in a close air combat. And it also cannot do enough damage to ground targets without going back and forth to refuel constantly, compared to a bomber or attacker like the A-10, where they can go in, they'll have enough ordnance to completely decimate stuff, and then go back and refuel, rearm, and just go back out again and do more destruction on a larger scale. Single engine. Because it has a single engine, makes it much more likely to lose the plane than an twin engine. Let's say if something happens to an engine, like a malfunction or it was destroyed in combat. If it happens to a twin engine, if it loses one engine, it still has the other to be able to fly back to base and get it repaired and replaced, or replaced outright. Compared to a single engine where you'll just fall out of the sky and die if you can't eject. Another problem is if you look at the speeds here, you can see the difference in the Mach. This is top speed. Some Wikipedia didn't give me like the different speeds for the J20, probably because it's so new and they don't have much information about it. But these are the top speeds. The F35 is a Mach 1.6. The J20 is Mach 2. The Su-57 is Mach 2, and the F-22 is a Mach 2.25. Top speed. This is afterburners full burn. As you can see, the F-35 is much slower than all of them. They will catch up to the F-35 with throwing on afterburners. Um, Now, these numbers, especially for the J-20 and Su-57, this is just their current numbers. This is through observation. Probably not information being sent out by the governments of those nations. Especially for the Su-57, it's using an old engine from the Su-35S. Sorry, it is using that engine from that plane. Once it gets its new engines that were specifically designed for the Su-57, it will outmatch the F-35 in top speed easily. So for a single engine that is currently, by the rest, the most powerful and advanced engine, it can't outmaneuver. It won't be able to outrun these planes in a chase at all. They won't be able to catch up to these planes in a chase. So much for being the most advanced engine. Where am I at now? Sorry, I lost where I was because I had to talk about that. The variants for the three branches. There we go. I found it. Now, why is this bad? Let's say when we finally go to war with Russia, and they found out how this plane works. They will start knocking out these planes out of the sky. That means all three branches that has the F-35 won't be able to do much without taking massive losses because Russia figured out the weakness of this plane. They're able to hack it and all that stuff. Advanced tech. Having advanced tech does not make it a good thing at all. Sometimes having the more advanced something is, the easier it is to hack it. Let's say for electronic warfare, someone's able to hack in, lock your fire systems completely, so where the pilot won't be able to shoot you without trying to unjam it, without Pentagon trying to unjam it. It's capable of jamming the radars to where you won't be able to lock onto the target at all and shoot it. It can, if it's somehow linked, for whatever reason, linked up to the power of the engines, they'd be able to hack into it and shut off the power completely, knocking you out of the sky and you trying to figure out how to turn it back on. Also messing with the mapping. The pilot has two types of maps. He got a map on his leg that's strapped to his leg, so when he's flying around, it doesn't fly off, and a map on his computer system that's linked to his weapon systems. What happens if Russia hacks into that map? And they're able to change the coordinates on it. So the friendlies want targets, and they give it to him. Types it in, puts it in for the weapon systems and all that. Flies in. During that time, he's concentrating trying to fly the plane without being shot down or whatever. Russia messes with the coordinates a little bit, and he ends up accidentally attacking his own troops or his allies without realizing it. That is the price of having high advanced tech. Sure, you can defend against it, but you can only defend against something that you know of. If you've never been attacked like that, you can't defend it, obviously. Cost. Since it has three variants, one for each branch, they cost differently instead of being roughly the same because of the difference in what their needs are and what kind of materials they have to use and stuff. So let's say if the most expensive variant, the F-35B for the Marines, and they end up having more F-35s than the others. That means DoD has to spend more money to build them because the Barber variant costs more money than the others. So that is a problem when you have three variants and for each branch and they're costing different prices. And it's kind of a negative in its own way. Especially when stealth planes are expensive as it is, just keeping them around, even after you build them, because it's just the materials that you have to use. Compared to any 4th gens. Maintenance. This plane requires way more maintenance just to keep them operational compared to even the F-22. But it's the same for all stealth planes. They require more maintenance and cost just to keep it in combat operational than compared to any 4th gen. Because of the materials and paints they have to use, after each flight, you have to check and make sure, because I'm not sure exactly how it works, but I'm pretty sure if you get like a scratch on it, that's like a no-go. Because it defeats the purpose of having that material and paint on it. Because it's meant to absorb and reflect the radar rays completely somewhere else. So, and not only that, another reason why this is a problem is because maintenance crews has to make from their own. But I'll be talking about it a little bit. Development costs. This plane is the most expensive plane in the world when it comes to development. Almost $2 trillion just to develop and fixing all the problems this plane has. And it still has more problems than every single plane in this world, pretty much. The only problem, like people are talking about the Su-57 and its problems. The only problem it really has, truly, is it's right on its engine. It's a single engine that it's going to be using for twin engines. Once it gets that, it pretty much already has all its kinks worked out, and it's just waiting for more upgrades in the future and all that stuff. This plane has so much problems that it cracked. Like you can easily look it up on the internet. You see it every once in a while. It crashed in the ground because something happened. How is that a great thing for a plane, especially for how much it costs? And it will go above $2 trillion for this plane. And we're still building 156 each year. So it has problems with tools and parts. Just like the F-22, it has a massive problems with having enough tools and parts to keep this plane operational, to where maintenance crews even have to make their own, from what I have seen and heard, which is not great. That is disgusting. All right, we have what getting close to 3,000. Let's just go with that. Close to 3,000 of these planes, where less than half of them are just sitting around collecting dust and rust, which leads to more problems because even if you're covering them up, you keep them tucked away, you still have humidity, dust collects everywhere, and these will damage the planes eventually. So you pull it out, you have to recheck it over again completely, in which I said earlier it takes 10 hours to do that. So that means you have to waste 10 hours to check over this plane. If you don't, you send it out right away, it's going to crash and it's going to be destroyed because something broke because you didn't properly check it like you're supposed to. Pilot training. Now, why this is con is not because of how they're being trained. It is mainly how long it takes to train them, especially for a large air force like the United States and right now China. Having a lot of pilots and planes is not necessarily a great thing because obviously, like I said earlier in this video, it takes 2.5 to 3 years to train. Especially if you have to go through a few things first, like getting a college diploma. Obviously, it's going to take more than 3 years to do all that. And then, obviously, the additional months it takes to be a stealth fighter. So if a major war breaks out with either Russia, with a equal competitor, let's say we go to war with Russia, we lose a lot of planes. We won't be able to keep up with it. China, if they go against, like, whatever reason, go against Russia too, they will lose a lot of planes. Why? Because even though Russia doesn't have a lot of planes, they have a lot of air defenses, and it's one of the best in the world. So, and you will not be able to keep up with it, especially here in the United States. We don't have the population like China does. Not only that, and what I'll be getting to here shortly is the shortage of manpower. That for all branches in the United States military is having a massive shortage of manpower across all branches, which is not good at all in the United States. We are building 156 of these planes a year, and it takes more than 2.5 years to train a pilot. That means we are making these planes for no reason at all. Now imagine when, like I said before, it happens when a major war breaks out. How are you going to keep that up? China will have an easier time keeping it up than we will because they have the manpower for it. We don't. And it's mainly due to the lack of confidence in the leadership. I left because of the lack of confidence in the leadership. It's one of the reasons. Exports. And unlike the F-22, we are exporting the plane to NATO nations, even though it has more tech than F-22. So that means other countries can steal our tech for themselves. Or if they want to make a lot of money, they can sell it to Russia or China, and they will learn everything about this plane. So, it is stupid It is not a good idea to sell your most advanced plane to other nations, no matter what. If it hits the end of your the life and you got a new plane, fine, sell it. At that point, it doesn't matter because you have no need for that plane. You might as well get some money out of it that you used. It doesn't matter if it even helps pay off like the debt or development costs. It is stupid to sell the most advanced plane or any kind of equipment to another nation where they can steal it for themselves or sell the technology to another nation, and they will learn, especially a nation we're being extremely hostile to. Short stubby wings. Now this is my thought on it. All right, this plane has smaller wings than any other modern warplane. You can just take a look at the pictures. It's obvious that it has smaller wings than normal. Which is not good because that means there will be less airlift. Now, this is not a fantasy where things just fly around with magic or anything. This is reality. There's physics, there's rules you have to follow. In order for the planes to lift, they have to have enough thrust and they have to have enough airlift. The wings obviously gives you the airlift. The smaller the wing, the harder it is to get the airlift. The more thrust you have to kind of throw into it. Obviously, if you don't need that much, then humans can fly too. So let's say what happens to your single engine that you have on this plane, and it gets taken out. You'd be lucky if you can easily glide to the ground with the F-35. That's why if you ever see anything crashing for the F-35, it's because it couldn't glide anymore. Because it's not capable of gliding like the A-10, where that thing has an excellent airlift, to where they can turn it off the engine and just go in for a bombing run and turn it back on and get out of there. All right, and they've done that in the Gulf War in the 80s against the Iraqi army. And they turn off the engines, and they glide in, and they just devastate everything. That's why an A-10 is such a great plane, because it had excellent airlift. It also made it easier to fly around the mountains. So having small stubby wings is not a great thing in my opinion. Should have at least a large enough wing that will give you enough lift that if something happens to your engine, you can fly still. Have some resemblance of flying, really. 5th gen. Now, why this is a con is, for starters, it's a 5th gen fighter. It has far less speed, less maneuverability than other fighters. Like I already mentioned in speeds, it's slower than the other 5th gen fighters. Way slower. That means it can never outrun an enemy. In a dogfight, especially close up, it will not win against the Su-57 or the F-22. This plane was built for BVR, Beyond Visual Range. It's built to do a standoff. Get within range, fire your missiles, and leave, pretty much. That's what this plane is built for. Especially if it's using it's doing a ground missions, it won't really have necessarily a lot of missiles equipped because it has to use a lot of that room and weight for its bombs. So it will be at a massive disadvantage. It's like you got a squadron that found it, and it shoots a couple missiles. And that'll be all it has. Let's say what happens if it's like the Su-35s, it dodges them because they're so fucking maneuverable, and they're able to dodge that missile by throwing out flares, chaffs, doing all kinds of tight maneuvers and stuff, and they're able to dodge the missile somehow. That means now you have to outrun these planes that are probably faster than you. Let's take a look real quick. Let me look at this. Su-35S speed. That's not what I want to look at, you stupid internet. I want to look at the max speed. The max speed for the Su-35S is Mach 2.25. So it's way faster than the F-35. So if it loses up its missiles, now it has to run for its life, dodging missiles that's being shot at it by the Su-35. And if it's able to dodge it somehow, now it has to fucking survive a gunfight with the Su-35, and it's not going to win. So, it being a 5th gen is not a great thing because it's not really designed for an actual air superiority fight. Thrust vector. The United States government does not like thrust vectoring at all. They claim it makes the engine heavier and costs more, which is absolutely true. It does make the engines heavier and it makes the plane cost more. But the real reason is because they believe it is useless in combat. That's just our view of things because, like I said before, how this plane was built, we believe in BVR combat, not in dogfighting. We have been trying to believe that for years, for a very long time. Now, me, I prefer thrust vectoring. I believe it's absolutely worth it because I believe maneuverability is a key to victory in combat. A signal weakness. This is for all United States planes. Is that our airfields? All right, we do not cover our engine. We don't have do not design our engines to be able to take in objects and spin it back out perfectly fine without damaging engines. All right, you it any kind of fob, foreign object debris, any kind of fob that's out there, you have to pick it up in the airfield. All right, it could be a pebble, blade of grass, or whatever. You have to pick it up. That pebble goes into the engine, it will do so much damage to these engines, and it makes the plane completely useless. So that is a major weakness for all of us here in the United States as a plane. So, and our problem too with that is because we have so many bases in this world, we have the most bases around the world, it's much easier to strike our air bases and completely knock them out to where you have nice clean skies for a bit until we figure out what to do. Built for profit. The F-35 was built for profit, not war. Now, what does that mean? It means the MIC, or military industrial complex, built this plane for the maximize profit. That means, I mean, look at it, like I said before, we don't have the manpower to keep this plane operational. We don't have the industry to keep this plane operational. So that means we are building 156 of these planes a year, just sitting around doing nothing. And this plane is almost at $2 trillion, and it will hit $2 trillion soon. I guarantee you that much, to where all the problems this store has, just to fix all these problems as an end cost. So this plane, these military industries are making billions of dollars off this plane every single year. Every 156 planes, you're making tens of billions of dollars easily. So how is this good for any country, especially for a country that's slowly collapsing because we're just losing so much money, we're so much in debt? That is a massive con. Now, that is it for pros and cons that I can think of. So as you can see, this plane has way more cons than pros. There's, if you count out, there's 9 pros and 17 cons. That's literally more than half. that's almost twice of cons to the pros. Especially for how advanced and pricey this plane is, it's not worth it at all in any way. Now, to me, this is give you what I believe, a very short brief. I believe this plane is completely useless right now. It is not a complete piece of junk. That's not me saying it. I just think this plane's useless for how much it costs. I prefer we keep using the 4th gen fighters that we had for like 20 years, 30 years now, because they're way more useful than this plane will ever be, in my opinion. This plane has so much problems. We're not in a hurry to fix them. Our military doesn't care, and they want to spend as much money on this plane so they can make so the leadership can make a ton of money off this plane. Pretty much, it's not a good thing, especially when we're $37 trillion in debt. So I hope this video was educational, and it made you guys think nice and hard about this plane, where you think it's great still for whatever reason, even after I try my best to lay it out for you guys in this way. Because there's way more cons than pros in this plane. Or you're like me and think this plane's useless. And that money that we have been spending billions of dollars each year, it could be put into something far better for our defenses, or put back in the economy, which it should go, and which we really need in order to help improve and fixing it. Like I said, we're $37 trillion and it's climbing fast in debt. So and not giving money to other countries that don't need it at all. That's not even NATO. NATO doesn't need it. Let the Europeans figure out their own. How they're capable of doing it. They're just like being lazy. So, if you like this video, hit that like and subscribe button. Please share it so that way other people can watch this, and hopefully I can learn if it's actually doing a good job, that I'm doing a good job with my pros and cons, really. And leave a comment below to let me know what you think of this playing the video and how I can prove the pros and cons of it and stuff like that. So thank you for watching and have a great day.